Welcome to another exciting episode of the Fine Leg Show. My name is Denis Musali, your host, and this week I'm privileged to be talking to two gentlemen who like cricket and like talking about it. Denis Karashani, a former captain of the Cricket Cranes, and Adonia Waibale, a batter with Wanderers Cricket Club. We've had a lot of exciting cricket happening for the last couple of weeks. The last time we were with you on the show, the first time we had Martin Ondeko, the CEO, the outgoing CEO of Uganda Cricket, talking to us. But we've had a lot of cricket happening in between those particular weekends, whereby my own Wanderers, is still on top of the table, surprisingly. I thought by the time we come back, they would be upstaged, but they are still on top of the table. The league will continue this weekend. The ladies, Pioneer, will be taking on Olida Cricket Club in Entebbe, and in Chambogo, Tornado B, who have not yet won a game, surprisingly, will be taking on Wanderers Cricket Club. On Sunday in the men's league, which is there'll be only one game this weekend because the Division 1 game has been cancelled. Aziz Damani Development will be taking on the Aziz Damani Development 2. So two games, only one game for the in the men's top flight, which is a Division 2 game, and it will be happening in Entebbe. Aziz Damani Development running away with it in the second division. They're already on top of that table, and considering that they've beaten the strong teams, I don't see anyone else defeating them. Ultimately, I'm assuming that they'll be promoted to the top flight at the end of the season. And unfortunately, Damani was supposed to start their defense of their title this weekend, but won't be happening. Communication coming through from Chambogo University that the ground will be holding another event. That is something for you guys who will be talking about it, gentlemen. But before we start the show, Davis, welcome. I want to start with you first because you have unretired yourself again and gone back to Wanderers. How was the homecoming, I would say?
Well, yet again, it's a pleasure to be on the Fine Leg Show. I would call it the top drawer cricket show really in the country. But straight to your point, I think for me as a person, it was great to be back on the cricket oval. I like the phrase you guys like to use of unretiring. So whatever makes the news for you guys works for you. But for me, it was good to be back on the cricket oval. It was familiar territory for me, familiar arena, and even better to do it in Wanderers colours, a club that picked me up when I was just 13 years. So for me to come back and be able to add to whatever good that is being done at Wanderers for me is a privilege.
They said that a lot of guys were not sure that even your teammates, that the ones you played with, that they were not aware that you were going to play with them, and they thought you maybe you're just going to come and go for the weekend or something. Is that so, or what happened? The news was not broken properly, or you didn't want to let the opposition know who will be coming to play against them?
Well, something we cannot take away for granted really is the fact that the scenery in Kamengo is fantastic. So it's a great place to go to on a Sunday morning. Some of us had to get up at about 7 to make sure that we are there for the game. So just to answer your point, there's no one who's going to wake up at 6:30 to drive all the way to Mengo just to sightsee and see a couple of birds. But for me, I felt I didn't think it was newsworthy whom I was ever going to play for. I just felt I just wanted to keep things as simple as possible, not have too much expectation. It was my first game back into active cricket, so for me, I just felt just coming out to play and freely express myself. It allowed me the opportunity to just come out and find a soft landing.
Why Wanderers? Someone would ask.
Why not Wanderers? Should be the bigger question. I've just explained. Wanderers is the first club I ever played for. I'm a former captain of Wanderers. Wanderers is coached by Samuel Simbi, a guy who literally picked me out of the dirt itself. So for me, it was never a question of why not Wanderers. Wanderers for me is one of my clubs. It is home to me. So for me, it was a no-brainer.
Adonia, Davis coming back. You and I play for Wanderers. We haven't had a chance to play. It seems that they are looking out places or your return may be delayed as is right now, or considering that Davis has joined the club, Brian Masaba, Frank Nsubuga now. Does that motivate you to come back and play, with these guys?
Absolutely. A chance to play with world-class players is definitely welcome. However, the return of Davis isn't really a worry thing, to be honest. The distance between batting number 6 and number 4, so I wouldn't worry so much about it. I'll just focus on taking back the number 4 spot, and I'll let Davis worry about number 6. So, frankly speaking, I'm looking forward to the experience, and definitely the setup at Wanderers getting the quality that we've been denied for a while. Obviously coming from 3-year break,
Yeah.
and I have to say, the day COVID started, the year COVID started, who would have known that Wanderers would be reaping the benefits of a pandemic. To speak of silver linings on rather dark clouds, but I think, like you mentioned earlier, Wanderers has picked up the spoils of what remained of the cricket league, and I think great things are about to happen.
True that. Let's stay with Wanderers for some time. Shocked? Okay. Davis, are you shocked that they are on top of the league? Played 3. Of course, SEC and SKPLS, maybe that is their level. But you'd feel that for SEC, more or less a little bit of their level. SEC and SKPLS, but the way they went and dispatched the home side Ceylon Lions in Kamengo was, in my opinion, people have been asking me about it the whole week. And my answer has been that maybe they could have won, but the win seemed very, very easy for them. What is working? Davis, you've played for the team so far, but what do you think is so far working? Are we running with luck or something?
Well, we must give credit, of course, to Wanderers. Wanderers are a club that came out of Division 2 last time round and managed to qualify to get into the main senior league, which is Division 1. So there is no doubt that there was an element of quality in the side. Now is, as you've rightly stated, now is a good time that Wanderers have been able to pick up a couple of players that might be able to make a difference. But between you and I, Dennis, I don't think there's too much to write home about, because Wanderers have only played 3 games. And you rightly stated, of the 3 games they've played, 2 that you might have thought that they could have gotten a better of. The surprise result, and perhaps the reason you're having a word about Wanderers, is the fact that they went to Kamengo and actually, literally, as you said, they dispatched the home team. A very strong team, of course, in that. But I think it's a bit too
say
early.
that because Ceylon Lions beat Challengers.
Yeah, the big challenges. Yeah, so you're right. Of course, that is the result that must have caused a lot of jaw dropping. So it is a sign for Wanderers and to the rest of the teams that are in the league that perhaps Wanderers does mean business in this particular season.
Adonia, what do you think? The building blocks for Wanderers have always been quite strong, and it's historically it's never a team to write off. But the additions, Brian Masava, Frank Subuga and Davis Karashani bring a little bit of gravitas, scratch that, a lot of gravitas to the team. So I think there's going to be a lot of contention, and it's going to come down to the technical staff, who gets what. Earlier on in the conversation, Davis mentioned that the game in Kamengo could have gone differently if, say, Ceylon Lions had won the toss. Yeah. So those are the kind of details that are going. I
remember chatting with Davis in the morning, and I told him that probably we should bowl first, and he was, no, really? Why? No. I was surprised actually when they won the toss and elected to field first.
Yeah, well, just also that my school of thought is that at least the cricket that I played is I never used to like to make some of these decisions without having a look at the wickets. I feel that those decisions are largely based on what the wicket looks like, what the weather is like, what the team composition is. So for me, I never was a person to agree with someone sleeping in their bed, waking up at 6 a.m. and assuming that the wicket will be perfect to bat or ball first. Yeah. So I always prefer to go the conservative way, get to the ground, assess the conditions, and then make the decision with informed information.
Yeah, and as a person who has played Wanderers, played for Wanderers for a few years, I mean, these are conversations I'll be very happy to have for a change. We've been we've been criminals in the past. We've been caught on the wrong side of tosses and having to make rather technically non-compliant decisions. So I think
is the word you're looking for.
No, no. But I think the game, looking at the game from a different lens now, having these kind of conversations, I think altogether the competition in the National League. And the setup of the league altogether, the brighter days to come, really.
Okay, and sticking with the league, Davis, the game that you played, maybe I don't know if you were very disappointed in Ceylon not showing up as maybe they should have, but do you get that thing? How we used to have it in the past that you don't have you don't have a good night's sleep because you're worried about the guys in the other team. Maybe they have Shazad, they have Ruwan, they have Falak, and you're trying to in your mind you're trying to plot for them, plot for them for tomorrow. Is that still there? I mean, we've taken 3 years without playing, but do you feel like you wake up on a Sunday morning and you're motivated to do this? You want to win and you want to go and play hard.
Well, Dennis, to be honest with you, is the fact that some of us would like to jump straight into the competition. For me, I still get those kind of thought processes even a day or two before the actual game. Just to let you know, for me, I felt it was better for me. I preferred to come up and play against the Ceylon Lions than play against SEC. Why? Because I felt man for man, Ceylon Lions, in terms of the personnel that they have in their team, are a very strong outfit. I felt that for me it was going to be a game I would be itching to get out of bed to go and actually compete against, unlike the other teams, without sounding disrespectful.
Are you picking and choosing your position?
Not necessarily. I just felt for me that is a particular game that I would go to sleep thinking about. I would know that there's probably Falak, there's Dos Mumza who has been in the runs for some time. Ruwan has been getting some runs for his particular team, so I always felt there's David Wawire, a good fast bowler. So I felt that Ceylon Lions, Shazad, Kamal, they have a very, very good team in terms of the personnel. And for me, I felt I always liked to be play against, especially good players. I like to come up against good matchups, good kind of athletes. So for me, I'll speak for myself. For me, that turns me on more than playing against the likes of. It's okay. Let's keep it at that.
Oh wow.
That's a quite. I know someone will pick it up and it will be going around. But Adonia, Wanderers, one of the. I mean, and this is something I thought we should talk about. Is Wanderers benefiting from finally having. Teams have been asking for it, and of course it was effected this year. Davis, one of the guys on that cricket committee. There's the only way guys like Franklin Sovuga and Brian Massa are actually playing for Wanderers is because teams were asked to have only 4 national team players. You can have as many as you want in your squad, but you can only have 4 in your playing 11 on a match day. Are we seeing the goodness in this, considering that there was a lot of resistance about it initially, but somehow now the league seems to be opening up. Wanderers can match up with Ceylon Lions. Ceylon Lions can match up with Challengers. Probably now people will be more interested in the Wanderers versus Damani duo rather than in the past where they'll be like, I don't know how many Wanderers is just coming for damage limitation.
Yeah, so ultimately a decision that's been long overdue. I mean, looking at the setup and how it's been, we've always had. Historically, we've always had a giant in the league, and the premise of the giant has always been, stocking up on national team material. Davis here has been a beneficiary of that cricket patriarchy, so to speak, from the days of Premier. I mean, it was quite difficult for teams like Castle to come up against Premier and expect to get anything. It was always, whitewashes. So I think we are finally getting a little bit of a leveling of the playing field, and in my opinion, I think the game can only grow from this point. But from a technical perspective, again, the teams are going to have to do a lot more because now that the players are evenly spread out, how are we adding value to these national team players? Are they just going to come and pitch camp on Sunday and just put in a shift and then head out? Are they passing on some skills to the rest of the setup? So there are going to be some critical questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves and answer, so that this whole decision works and makes sense. The decision has been made, but what of it? If we do not benefit from it, then it's just another, rule in the book, So I think the spirit of it is in the right place. The execution of it, are we going to see the results that were intended? And maybe Davis can shed a little bit of light, why this decision now? Or even why this decision at all. I mean, we could as well just let the money run riot with it and, keep raking up all the trophies and, it's business as usual. Yeah.
Davis, what say you? You guys who made the decision, do you feel like you're being vindicated by what's happening? Not a lot of games going into the season, but at least you can see, after the few that have been played, you can see You know, you can see the benefit, one to Wanderers, but even to, let's say, Ceylon Lions and stuff. Are you guys being vindicated by making this decision?
Well, you rightly stated that I sit on that committee, and it took quite a bit of debate, of course, with contrasting opinions about that particular passing, that particular policy, and I'm bound by the collective responsibility principle to believe that as a committee we did make the right decision. But just to give you the thought process behind that, of course, in our opinion, it did not come out of bad faith. It came out of the fact that we felt the international calendar for Uganda is massively very heavy. We felt that we needed to have as many national team players or as many prospective national team players gather up a lot of competitive time, a lot of cricketing time that will expose and actually build the skill set. So that was the thought process behind it, and as you rightly stated so far, at least you get to see a couple of players that have played, picking up some what you would say valuable time in the middle of the wicket, and that was very important for me as a person. My disappointment is that would have expected and hoped to have a lot more changes to get the league to much better position than it is. A classic example is that we had hoped to have largely the Division 1 teams play quite a bit, because that was supposed to have helped in the preparation for them build up to their tour that was going to be in Namibia, and equally be a ripple effect to build up towards June. So it's a bit, I can't hide my disappointment that we have a couple of clubs that haven't even played a single game in the league, and that for me is a very big disappointment. It goes totally against what we had envisaged, but we'll be hoping that perhaps it's a start of new things to come.
Yeah, I think the reason why some clubs haven't played is probably the grounds and all. There's been competition for the grounds, especially from other sports, football and all. But like Donny was saying, how do you guys monitor? How, as a committee, I don't know, how do you monitor to see that, yes, this is what we came up with, but how do you, at the end of the season, will you be able to assess and understand that maybe if when Denis was in Wanderers, actually he was able, whatever decision we made added value to the whole thing?
You speak of a very good point, and it basically is about monitoring monitoring and evaluating what has come out of the decisions, and that is very important. I think this is something that we have lacked as a federation for a long time. In one of those meetings for us as we're preparing for the league is that we hoped to have a lot more data-driven information and decision making. So we're hoping that perhaps at the end of this season, this particular 50-over season, which is a very short one, we're hoping that we'll be able to assess and be able to tell, based on the data, if it actually did make a difference, especially in the prospective national team players. So we're hoping to take that direction to be able to assess that it has made a difference. Unfortunately, we do recognize that as well. There was a bit of a hiccup in one of the games. There was a challenge about the players, but that's been sorted out and rectified. So we'll be hoping that, as I mentioned, that it's...
What was the challenge?
I think one of the clubs ended up using more than the allotted number, but it was a clerical error on our end. So they basically got away with something that was our fault. So we have managed to rectify that. The communication I'm meant to understand has gone out to that particular club. So we'll be hoping, as I mentioned, it's a start of good things to happen.
Adonia, what do you think would be, in terms of, if we're taking off wins, what would success look like for this particular? It has been around in the past. Somehow, maybe people got complacent or something, and then it changed along the way. But what would a win look like? What would success look like in that? You know, would success be having more competitive games? I don't know. We can't tell how many people have come through and watched. But are we having more runs being scored by maybe lesser teams against bigger teams and things like that? Are we having more surprises throughout the whole season? What would success actually look like because of this particular rule?
I think at the middle of it all is growth of the game, in my opinion, and having this spread out the way it's been spread out, I think has multiple benefits. For starters, I hope that there will be more fans, you know, coming out to watch these games. I mean, we've spread out the national team players who are the stars of the show, you know, on the cricket scene. So the hope is that a lot more fans, you know, will be drawn. Now Wanderers is newsworthy. All of a sudden, a season ago, Wanderers wouldn't even make a a
Ouch.
Facebook tweet,
Ouch.
from Kawowo Sports. Wanderers wouldn't make that. So I think for me, a lot is spreading out into the setup of the game. But very, very important is the opportunity for growth from first of all, a youngster perspective. Wanderers has got a few of those. I am certain all the other teams have a few of those. And having key players in the national setup in the country just basically hobnob with the youngsters. It is bound to rub off in a positive way. So only good things can come out. Ultimately, the league itself has balance. It has ounces of balance now. Everything is, the ground is leveled, or at least I would like to think it is. So we expect a little bit more fight in every match.
Fair enough. I hope that at the end of the day we see more close games, especially between the haves and have-nots. But I'll put this to Davis that I run a cricket club, and one of the challenges that has been in terms of taking on guys of national team experience has been the question of clubs actually affording them. And some of the clubs have opted not to actually take them on because of you're taking on an extra responsibility in terms of finances and resources. So it's a case of if you want to come to me, it's okay, I'll give you playing time, because even as a club they are sacrificing a position to accommodate you. It's not like a given that you're supposed to. That's Davis shakes his head, but it's the truth. What's the name of the club? Kachi Tigers. Alpesh made the case for it by saying that for him he plays 11 investors in his team. So if he's being told that you need to remove 2 and play 2 other guys who are not investors, meaning as a club they're losing what? They're losing an investor and resources, because the investor he wants to play. Yeah, so the only way he can support the club is if he's going to be playing. So it's a case of them also sacrificing a position, but also the club. So it's some clubs have opted not to actually take on the players because of that responsibility. Did you guys envision that as something that could come up, or it's a? I mean, you cannot cover all your bases. You can only work with. You can only do so much.
I think it's a holistic approach. Really. It requires entire thought process. It has to be an end-to-end kind of thought that must go into it. But to be honest, at the end of the day, I think this also goes down to personalities of these national team players, and it's very easy. You'll find it a lot easier to have certain national team players play for as many clubs as possible. I think that's largely also based around their personalities. They are easy to attract and they're easy to get along with. We've also had scenarios of some national team players literally being, for lack of a better word, being chased away from certain clubs because of their disciplinary issues. So you make a good point, but I also do not believe in that thought process of Alpesh. In the thought of basically playing investors, as you've rightly stated it. I think if a club is ambitious enough, if they're not taking the league as a knock around, they will want to have a couple of important players in their side to make the differences and perhaps to win games, to win what could have been narrow games for them. So those national team players are expected to step up. So for me, if a team is ambitious enough, they will find a way of making their way to some of these players, availing, reaching a middle ground of either finding a way of facilitating them. Or I've always been a believer in performance-based contracts. I don't believe people should simply get paid. I think as you said, if he's a national team player, you expect him to win you a couple of games. So you can structure a contract around that, so that it is a win-win, that you benefit from the national team player, but also as a club, you can learn a couple of things from this player. So it requires an entirely holistic approach.
Maybe if I can chime in as well, it's rather heartbreaking, just to look at first of all, what's the purpose of the league, and if we have a club that isn't serving the purpose of the league, then that comes to the other end of the stick. What are the minimum requirements of a club, getting into this league? I think there should be, in respect to other clubs, really, in respect to other participating clubs, there should be a minimum. You should offer some form of competition. Fine, if the investors are going to provide it, that's fine. But highly unlikely. You still need the agility of youth in any setup to really compete. And primarily, really, if Alpesh, which I hope is not the case really, I hope that they can pitch camp and give the other teams a run for their money. It's quite disappointing if another team puts everything they've got on a Sunday and then we are bowling to CEOs who have all manner of bottom lines to unpack. So I think the spirit of the game needs to be maintained. But I definitely hear him in terms of the cost of running a club. I mean, it's plagued cricket for a while, and I think what has been an eye-opening for a lot of national team players and even perhaps a lot of clubs, this whole opening up of players. A few clubs have been able to meet the bill, the insane and, like some people will say, undeserved money that some players have asked for. Undeserved because even to date we still have players demanding for 400k a game in a season of 9 games. That's ridiculous. I mean, I don't think a lot of us make that money in a day, even those who sit in high-rise buildings in office. I don't think any of them really make that money. So I think when all the chips fall down, cricket is the principle. I mean, if we get to play, awesome. If we don't get to play, then we've lost.
Are we? Do you mean some of the guys are pricing themselves out of the market? I don't know, where does that valuation? Where do you get? I've never played for money, so I wouldn't know how much I would charge for anyway. Maybe I've never been that good enough to play for money. But what would someone say? I need 400k to play every weekend.
Well, Davis will tell us. But if I can just chime in before, I appreciate where they're coming from. I mean, some of these guys survive off the game. Outside cricket, they don't have so much going for them, and their skill, they make an argument as to whether it's compelling is a conversation for another day. But they have an argument, they have a case to make. I literally, this is all I have, and it has to pay me, or at least provide for me the basics. But I think the crisis comes in when they overestimate their value, and in this case, pit that against a team like Wanderers, which pretty much has players, alumni who are actually funding, the club's activities. It gets a little bit burdensome for guys to pay 3 million, 4 million a year, someone to come and play. So again, the committees that have been set up, we've solved one issue, but there is more to solve.
There's a lot more work, and before Davis comes in, there are guys watching from Soroti, Sadamo Yaga, Karo Namugenyi, they're all, and also far. There's a comment that says Adonia is making them look for their dictionaries just to make sure they keep up with the show. But Davis, like Adonia has been mentioning, how would I know there are guys who really is it a disconnect? Sometimes I feel like it's a disconnect between what is and what it should be. When someone says they need 400k to play, on their end, it is fair to them because I think that's how much value they think they have. But then again, you're disconnected from the reality, which is how clubs actually raise resources to look after the team, to just make sure. Off head, I know our manager is watching Nikuchisare, but off head I think he spends about 600k just on player, just to make sure that the game actually we show up and we are properly looked after. We are properly looked after on match days. How does it work in terms of players actually understanding where the clubs come from and if they can actually be able to meet them halfway in terms of what they need?
Well, Dennis, for me, the fundamental principle really is that we need to recognize that a sports career, you only have you have a very, very fine margin of actually benefiting out of that sports career that you have. So I understand where the sportsmen do come from, but we must be able to understand that we also live in an era of overpriced and overhyped sportsmen. So it's key for you to be able to distinguish and perhaps put what you would call an ample valuation on the player. But for me, I've never had a big worry about some of the price tags that the players put on themselves. One, it is, and we must remember that it is a factor of demand and supply. There are certain clubs in the market that are willing to actually pay that amount of money. So it's and as I've mentioned, rightly stated, really, is that a cricketer, like many sportsmen, you have a very, very short time to actually reap from your talent. So if you need to find a way of structuring. I was basically going to disagree with Donny's comparison of a guy who sits in his office in a day job, because for him, his career, he's literally building his career. But a sportsman, your career, you have about 10, 12 years, unless you're Franco Sobga and you can go 20 years. But generally speaking, yeah, you do not have a lot of time. So you need to make as much bucks as you can within that window.
Totally agree with that, but I think my issue was with the disconnect between actually getting to understand. For example, let's say if you work in a shop, yeah, and you hardly make any sales throughout the whole month, but at the end of the month you're with your boss like a boss. Yeah. I mean, almost go deco, sort me out. Yeah. But you've been seated together every day, and no one has come actually to buy something. Isn't that the disconnect where either the market, the player market had been, I don't want to say not saturated, but spoiled by the differences in between the haves and the have-nots? Because if Wanderers can't afford me, then someone else can. Exactly. Damani can, and they will give me what I'm asking for. But if Damani cannot take me on anymore, and I'm looking for an option, my demands cannot be the same.
Obviously.
I think I alluded to that dilemma earlier on. Coming from a history of, I've only seen about 2 clubs that have thrown money at everything, and they've had results for a few years, and then out they were. So I think the principle of value is two-way. If there is a player who has or purports to have value, through their lens they see the value. Through the club's lens, that value shows up in a different way. So Davis will come to Wanderers and play for 10 million shillings. By the time it's an example. By the time Wanderers gives him that 10 million, they've seen that value. But the bigger question is, why does Wanderers see that value? What is Davis putting on the table? So for me, that has always been the question. I do not, and the players have often only presented playing time for these clubs. All they do is Sunday comes, and 8 hours on the green, and they are gone, and that's it. So if that's just the value, I don't even think 3 million is really out of pocket. So there's been a lack of value addition from the amount of money the players ask for. If you're just giving me playing time, that's not value. You're not adding to my structure. You're not building the club. For example, I'll be very happy to pay that money to someone who actually perhaps is available. You'll also find that they don't train with the team. They train with the national team and just show up on match day. So a lot of setup dynamics really had to be looked in, and for players to show, that they're actually worth this money.
I think that has always been my argument as well, that we need to build clubs that will live past our lifetime. The guys who, handed down the responsibility probably had that thought process in mind. Because if it's not sustainable, and if I'm not around, Davis is not around, Adonia is not around tomorrow, the next guys, can they be able to carry this forward in the right way, rather than like you mentioned, if it's just a Sunday meetup and then what? Yeah. So what? So for us to and someone is asking here, how do we have something that is sustainable? Yes, and the argument shouldn't be that no one should be compensated for their time and their talent, is most especially. But how do we make it sustainable that once, even if it's not a case for now, but it's a case that it's an ongoing case over a very long period of time.
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, how do we make it? First of all, this whole payment thing is temporary. A lot of clubs have tried to become self-sustaining. I remember, I think even SCCA had a business at some point. But you see, it gets overbearing. It gets too much for anyone to really keep. And if the cricket keeps taking and taking and taking, and it doesn't give. I mean, we're going to run ourselves into the ground. So the whole concept, I'll go back to value and, you know, just how much is a player bringing back, you know, and this has to go beyond the transaction of I've paid you 400K. I mean, players have refused to play in the past before you've paid them 100%. So it's clear where the heart is. And granted, people have to earn a living, but at what cost? Should cricket come first still? Davis, have you been paid? Sorry. Anyway, so should cricket come first? Where is the game? You know, and perhaps we're asking too much from a sportsman, but there has to be a principle. The principle has to be the game first. I mean, if we can enter into contracts, I mean, no one wants to hear, these players don't want to hear of a performance contract. If you were to tell a player, listen, every game you score 50 runs, 500K, we'll pay it. Every game you score 100K, we'll pay you $1 million shillings. That would be a better deal for any player. But you see, how many players will actually sign that on? Yeah, very few will be willing. You know, if pick a hat trick, you get your 300K. You know, so such compromises need to come into play for us to have, you know, headway in the right direction. So value, show your value, and you get your value back.
Yes, Don, you speak, of course, very, very good points, and I entirely agree with you. And as I rightly stated again, equally, is that I think the performance-based contracts for me are the way to go. One, you equally send quite a bit of responsibility onto the player, not to just basically show up for a Sunday game. It's not a knockabout anymore, because it means that the player needs to actually perform. They need to put in the big performances for the club, because they're getting the big bucks anyway. But besides that, I've always felt that for me, the structure of the contracts we need to find out changing it. I've never been a fan of, say, players that are under 20 or under 18 receiving cash. So I've always felt that as well, clubs as well are equally to blame for whatever is going on. That they've equally not done their part. They've rushed to try and snap up some of these players as quickly as possible, and for lack of a better word, have also exploited them. So for me, I think it needs to be a narrative that needs to entirely change in terms of Uganda cricket as a federation. We need to find out getting our hands onto some of these contracts. Players that are under 18 should not be receiving cash. Worst case scenario, at least a club should pay for them tuition, should pay basic things like scholastic material, so that at the end of the day, you are adding educational value to the player. And the contracts need to be structured, as Donny stated earlier, more than just the 8 hours that you spend on the cricket field. You need to find a way of either getting the player to coach a couple of people, either getting a player to do a lot more work than just a bat and ball for you. So for me, those are discussions. They are uncomfortable discussions, but I think it's high time that we start having them.
Just before Dennis, I will forever blame cricket, and you know, the setup that it is, or that it has been previously for just one player. In my opinion, I don't think I even had the chance to play with them, but I assume they've been plenty, like Isaac. At age, it was about
14, 15.
Age 14, the man was the boy wonder, was playing for the national team. But after that show, I mean, money thrown at the young man, airs and wings on his back, and boom, you know, he's nowhere. I mean, there is no win in that deal for anyone. That was probably the worst bargain that he's been dealt. So I think we can only learn from such cases and build better structures, but most importantly, protect the game, protect the players the best way we can. You know, so what kind of contracts do we have, you know, for young guys? It cannot be a cash contract. And so that goes back to how are we profiling? Do we have databases for players? I know for a fact that each and every season, every club submits a team sheet. So we have all the players on file, but what kind of follow-up has been made to sort of, you know these players are at this stage, this one is at this stage? What kind of contracts? Clubs should be able to disclose contracts to the association. That should be very basic. We've had scenarios where a player literally at the beginning of the season receives money from 2-3 clubs. That has been known to happen, and then there is a whole, you know, drama that follows after that. So I think as people who run the game, there's a lot more homework to be done. beyond again the green and the crease. Yeah.
That's so true. And in terms of doing it in an end-to-end process, it needs to be properly thought through. That's why I say it's normally a case of we do something, but we don't think through. We don't think through it up to the end. And for me, I wanted to speak. It's also an opportunity for clubs to. It shouldn't be one-sided. The players, yes, are available, and the talent is there. But it should be an opportunity for clubs to reorganize themselves, restructure, find ways, rather than just saying, we can't afford you, maybe we can't do this. But you need to find ways. That's the way we're going to be competitive. If you want to find partners, they want to partner with you if you're winning. No one will partner with an average team. They'll say, for us, we are a mid-table team. We are happy here. But if you pick up a couple of wins, you start to create interest in people who want to partner with you as well. So there is also an opportunity for clubs there to try and reorganize themselves in terms of how better do we raise, maybe do we get more members, do we raise money internally. If I've been giving 10k, maybe I need to give 20k because we have a player that we have to look after. And then also, like you mentioned, that clubs need to find ways of showing up on Sunday is not good enough for us. Maybe you need we are attached to Ndeje SS. You need to you play for us X number of games, but you also go on X number of trips with us to try and pass on this knowledge to the school team. So there's an opportunity for clubs as well, without necessarily saying I know this is a burden to clubs and all, but there's an opportunity for them to try and reorganize themselves, and especially the traditional ones, because they're the ones who have been in the past who have been very hard hit in terms of raising money. But there's an opportunity for them there, in my opinion.
Well, Dennis, really, for me, after 2 years of COVID, if a club or if a structure or a federation really did not use that time to try and think through some of the strategies that would help them post-COVID, I think they are behind the 8 ball. It's not too late for them to start, but for me, again, as you said, for me, those are the conversations that we need to start having. Beyond the 8 hours of the cricketing stuff that happens on the ground, we need to find a way of structuring not just the playing itself, the coaching itself, the women's format as well. We need to find a way of finding a blend of all these things, so that perhaps guys that you're contracting for your men's national team should be able to pass on an element of coaching skills to your ladies club. You need to find a way of getting some of these players either to participate with either the children of some of your members, coach them. You need to find a way of getting them onto the grounds to help with your ladies team. So for me, the contracts, and for sustainability's sake, we need to find a way of making sure that we can milk every bit of out of the cow that we're paying for.
And frankly speaking, it's to the benefit of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the girls, our ladies team is in much more danger to make it to the ODI status before the men's team. We're most likely to qualify to get that status through the women's team. So any benefit to that direction, any action to that direction is really, really the best thing for the game today. So I think maybe whichever clubs are really listening out there, go ahead and sign these contracts, go ahead and look for the money to pay these players, but then ask for more. Yeah. Ask for more, make sure that you get value for money. Yeah.
Very, very true. Discussion that will go on for so long. But I think at the end of the day, maybe someone would ask Davis, why isn't it, even for the ladies, this applies for the men this year, but for the girls, it's not, it's still free market economy in the ladies league. Would it work for them as well, or?
I think it was key for us not to jump the gun. It was key for us not to literally react out of have a knee-jerk reaction. We need to first of all assess how it actually goes with the men. But the discussion about the women as well was tabled, but we felt we needed to do a bit of a study of how it goes with the men, so that by the time we're effecting it with the women, we already have we're able to tighten on the screws and find we already have solutions to the gaps that we might have had in the first season. As I've just stated, that we found a gap recently, and we are looking to try and make sure we can cover those gaps, rectify whatever challenges. So by the time it gets effected in the women's game, the women will have the luxury of they already will have an idea of how it works. They have Kasasi, that it is actually going to come. So they need to prepare themselves as the ladies as well. They need to up their skills so that when that time comes and a club needs to select only 4, you are actually in that conversation. You don't want to be among the 2 or 3 that they're quickly releasing. So the ladies are fortunate they have the luxury of that element of information before that actually happens.
All right, the guys watching, Abraham Alema asks Adonia Waibale from a comment that we made that the value of the league is still very low. I think, if I'm trying to remember it correctly, offhead, the winner of the league gets about 5 million shillings. The runners-up get, I think, 3, and second division is 3 and 2. So for him, he feels that the value of the league, and that is from the UCA perspective, that value also needs to be, jacked up, taken a notch higher up, so that there's more motivation for clubs to actually go out there and maybe add these people to their particular clubs, because is that something that you think also needs to be worked on?
So I'll speak of value from two perspectives. So unlike any other sport, unlike football, cricket can't afford to pitch prizes that are insane, 100 million, 40 million, whatever millions. But that doesn't mean that there is no value. A lot of the clubs a lot of the players that are playing for these clubs are playing for what is it called? Pedigree. For example, Davis goes back to play for Wanderers after it's been 10 years. About 10 years. He's back in Wanderers. Why? It's pedigree. So there is something about cricket that is bigger than money. I definitely hear Alema. Does UCA need to put the prize money up? I don't think that the clubs that participate need the money. First of all, the biggest.
We do.
No. I'll speak to the Wanderers. Does there's no doubt about that. I'll speak to the clubs that are actually paying the big bucks. The clubs that are actually winning all the tournaments year in, year out. Has there been a shortage to compete from a club like Wanderers because of Wanderers hasn't pitched camp because there is no value, because the prize is not worth it? Wanderers prize is not in cash. Wanderers prize is in pedigree. It's in pride. Wanderers is number 1 on top of the table. That just sends certain waves in the alumni, and there are just so many people who are proud to associate with Wanderers. Does the league need to pay more? That's a question for the finance guys. But from where I'm seated, pay less, run the league. Does that make sense? I mean, there is more to cricket than just the league. The association runs quite a number of activities. But I definitely hear Alema, and perhaps there is work to be done by the association. Maybe acquire a sponsor, get a sponsor who can a title sponsor who can inject some money. Maybe the money doesn't have to come from UCA. So definitely driving the value up is something that we need to look into. Without a doubt, it is something that will encourage competition. It will encourage maybe clubs like Kachi Tigers will stop using CEOs to play. So yeah, there's lots of good things that can come from it. But until that happens, I don't think that 5 million is a stumbling block. You're definitely not going to get all the money you've invested. It's just too damn expensive to run a club, to pay players and pay for meals. Yeah, for now, there is a lot of work that we have to do to get the game to where we want to get it, for us to be bankable. For Wanderers to be in a position where they can approach Coca-Cola for sponsorship, and you don't have to worry about UCA's money. We're just playing for the good of the game, so that the people who come after us, maybe we've been unlucky to be born in this age where cricket is growing. We have to do the hard work. We have to do the hard work of growing the game, of not taking anything back. But ultimately, the goal is clear. That's the price we have to pay.
Well, Dennis, just to add on to that, I think my 2 cents on that is that one, I think he does make a good point, but for me, I think it's at that point is at the back end of the entire result for me. Is that I feel that there is no guarantee that by increasing the cash prize that it will improve the quality. Classic example is quite a number of us follow. There's a certain football league in one of those countries in the southern part of Africa. Big bucks in there, high prize money, but the quality of the soccer that is played in that league has left a lot to be desired. On the contrary, when you look at the Everest Premier League, the T20 played in Nepal, or even classically the IPL, you recognize that because of the standard of the game, the quality of the game means that the ripple effect is that once sponsors want to actually be involved, because the games are much closer, the games are exciting enough, the product is good enough, it is sellable. So for me, I feel as Uganda cricket, we need to first of all start by trying to better the products, better the not just the format, but better the skill sets, without sounding disrespectful at the end of the day, really. We went to Kawowo just the other day, and what was supposed to be a big game, one of the teams was bowled out for 48. So for me, if I was sponsor, perhaps MTN, and I walked up to what was supposed to be a big game, and one team gets bowled out for 48, then chases it for 5, for me, that is an indication about the quality. Whereas if you had planned to come in the afternoon when the game is actually on fire, like some of the guys that were supposed to have come, it means that you'll end up missing the gist of the actual event itself. So for me, I feel we need to start from bettering the skill set. The way schools cricket week used to be, the skill set was so high that the competition was so good that it was attractable for sponsors to actually get involved.
Very true, Davis. You make a very good point, and I both of you, that I think we need to first work on before we start asking for the big bucks. We need to make sure that the quality is right, and the value is there for everyone to see. I've forgotten his name, leg spinner. I'm looking at his Facebook name, but Odush Abraham says that traditional clubs mostly thrive on the goodwill of players. And in these hard economic times, for the players, it is money first before they can think about, I love this club and all. So for them, it's really a money first. It's a catch of egg and chicken. What comes first?
I'll respond to that. I mean, the last 2 years without cricket, how have they been surviving? I mean, if cricket, and I think cricket, we've been in this culture, and perhaps that's the one thing that is wrong with the sports setup in third world countries. The over-reliance and dependence on sport is such a plague, to local sport. And a lot of players have been, first of all, hoodwinked by the amount of money that comes from their youth. Those, like Davis mentioned, those 10 to 12 years have been such a lie that they blow money and are unable to support themselves, much later. So the whole culture of relying on sport, I think, is something that we need to break. It is a facade that will blow up, and right now enabling it, or even pretending that you can only rely on sport. The reason why I've been a believer. I'm a believer in early retirement, but the reason why we've kept a lot of players around our setup, around the cricket setup, is because everyone feels guilty. Oh, the man doesn't have anything else to eat. Oh, the man has only known cricket for the last 12 years. Oh, the man has only done this for the last 10 years. No, we do not owe them the future of cricket. We do not owe any player the future of Uganda cricket. Everybody comes in to serve. And once you serve, you have to serve knowing that at the end of the day, a day is coming when you have to get out. So you, as a human being, you have to plan. You have to know that I will serve for 5 years, or while I serve, how am I keeping something for myself? So I don't think that whole cushioning, taking players on that pedestal is something that is sustainable.
Ndimwibo Bob, all the way from Tungamo, says that we need to strengthen our structures, structure by structure. I mean, in everything that is required to have a player comfortable playing for a team. If a player got an injury, can a team look after him? Alema supplements that by saying marketing, we need to get sponsors on board. The East African Premier League was action-packed because of the prize money and TV. So those are some of the ideas anyway that we need to, like I said, we need to think about the whole thing end to end, because if you keep thinking about only the players are getting money and then this and that, the whole imagine if I go to Kamengo and maybe the umpires don't show up, or there are no balls, a few balls are lost into the neighboring factories, and then what happens? The game keeps the game gets stopped. But anyway, as we wrap up, we need to mention Kamengo Davis. For the facility, how much of it does it help cricket going forward? It's a privately owned club, but we played in countries like Malaysia. The grounds there are privately owned, and they are really very well looked after. How much of it does it help? Does it add to the profile of the game in terms of facilities?
Well, without a doubt, it comes as a huge sigh of relief to Uganda cricket, especially the fact that Uganda cricket doesn't have a home of its own. So for me, it allows Uganda cricket the luxury of having another oval that they can perhaps have some of these league games at, because it would have meant that if Kamengo did not exist, last weekend's game would not have happened. So for me, that gives a bit of a breathing space to UCA. However, it's also, for lack of a better word, it is a slap in the face.
Egg on face.
Yeah, it is egg on face that an individual can actually come to a country and be here for less than 10 years and actually have the vision and the dream and the ability to go to find land on Masaka Road and actually put up such a facility of that kind of standard and quality. When you listen to Rwan's plans and what he envisages for that particular ground, you in disbelief. You can't believe that a guy can be that passionate and have the ability to execute and want to do it that way. So for me, as guys that
I've always felt UCA's challenge was the democracy. My opinion, the democracy.
Well, that is also an issue. But
yeah, because for UCA, I think 9 different people have to agree on the same thing for it to happen. And in one's case, it's his, exactly. He went to his account. It is his gut. It is his willingness and love for the game that gets the things going.
Well, perhaps that is another indication in our faces that we don't necessarily always have to go with the democracy that you're talking about. But for me to speak about Kamengo, for me the quality of the standard of the ground is fantastic. The fact that he even went to Kenya to pick Koma, a famous groundsman from Kenya, picked the guy from Kenya, brought him to Kamengo to actually lay the wicket, and he's done an excellent job, not just with the wicket, but the outfield itself, the pavilion that is at Kamengo. For me, it's fantastic to see that there is another cricket over in Uganda, and we can only hope that other individuals pick a leaf and they grow the number of sports facilities, cricket facilities in the country.
Adonia, slap in the face?
Well, definitely. But last weekend I followed the game online, and for the entire, almost for 80% of the game, it felt like Entebbe reincarnated. If you happen to play on the Entebbe wicket when it had just been set up, it was literally a funeral ground. Teams, it was a miracle if you scored above 50 on that ground. So it sort of felt like Entebbe reincarnated. But Davis here reassures me that it was absolutely the ineptitude of the players. That Abissimo scores, the Abissimo score that was there was merely out of lack of application. So yeah. But again, having been, around UCA to look at and, actually also follow the conversations around acquiring a home that have been going on for what now? Close to 10 years. I found these conversations when I got into, cricket administration and just following cricket altogether. The conversation around getting a ground is something that is older than some of us in this game. So without a doubt, it's a shame, and I think the fraternity should not stop to demand for more. The fraternity should not stop to demand for better, because these are really, really minimum standards that we're asking for. If an individual can actually go ahead and put something together for a game that they love, the association owes the fraternity something that small at least, and I think it is something that we'll all be proud of. Obviously, that's known to say that no work has gone into acquiring that, but I think more effort needs to be made, and making this ground a reality for Uganda cricket is something that should keep all of us awake at night.
Alema says that we need to think about cricket in a commercial way, stop thinking about it in a Sunday thing, and then we come and then we beat around, have a joke, have a laugh, and then that's it until next Sunday. We are out of here. So we think we need to have an elite league of 4 teams where players are well paid. And then, if it's just 4 teams, everyone is looking forward to. I need to see Roger matching up against Davis or Adonia against Musali. So, it creates a lot more vibe. And he says, of course, Davis, well done on your hat trick. I think that is a topic we shall talk about, not the hat trick, but how to make the game more commercially viable and more interesting, so that we either bring new people, but attract new fans, and then create a different kind of value away from either whatever has been happening for the last, so many years. Guys, we are losing the light, so we'll need to chop this conversation from here.
Can we talk about the classic that was in Chambogo last Sunday?
Oh, yes. I wanted to talk about that, by the way. SEC and Tornado B. 3 points dropped, in my opinion, for Tornado B. I thought I thought at a certain point they were going to score SEC, but that eighth wicket partnership that had 100 runs, Oyaga Saddam and Emmanuel Odeng, making sure that the game goes down to the wire. Yesterday I was speaking to the manager Okana, and he said actually they needed a lot more runs, because they needed about 23 runs in the last 2 overs, but the 49th over went horribly wrong for Tornado B. There was a ball punched for 6 and then a couple of runs there. So by the time they got to the final over, actually SEC were the team who looked like they were going to win it. Very, very interesting there.
For a game like that, it brings back the days, the mid 2000s of cricket that was very, very joyous to watch. So definitely looking up to more of those clashes, more near misses and more draws. But just to maybe end on something that you hinted on, Dennis, in your last remark. I think we cannot run before we walk. We cannot. That can't happen. Right now, the work that we're doing is essentially going into what Davis was talking about. Commercializing this game happens after you have packaged the product, and I'll just speak this from a perspective of marketing. Really, if you do not have a good product, it does not matter how much money you put or how many sponsors you get. You're going to get sponsors you can't keep. Yeah, it's just not sustainable. So I think maybe to use perhaps the words that a lot of people will not like hearing, trust the process. As to whether the process is in the right hands is altogether a different conversation. But trust the process, and the process will get us there. Trust the process, get the right people to run the process, and we will have a decent product to sell. Look at rugby. I know brands are now clamoring to sponsor rugby, from the sevens to the regular to whatever rugby event, because they've actually done the work. They've packaged their product, and now everyone wants a piece of it.
Yeah, true that. Davis, talking about SEC and Tornado B, where do you feel who losers and winners? Who did you feel? I mean, the first points by the SEC scored the whole season because they had lost to Wanderers and Ceylon Lions. So getting points against Tornado B was, good. Just 1 point, but a very valuable point.
Well, for me, I think the biggest winner on the day that was in Chambogo was the neutral spectator. For me, for the game to go down to the wire, last ball, that is the exciting stuff you dream of when you're leaving home to go and watch a cricket game. So for me, the spectator was the biggest winner. But besides that, of course, for me, the fact that these 2 teams of 22 gentlemen came out on a Sunday morning and actually managed to play out what you would say 100 overs of the day, for me, is a sign that, one, it was a very close game. A very close game of near misses.
44 runs?
44 runs.
Yeah.
That for me was a very good game. It showed that the wicket was good enough for the teams to score those number of runs. One means that the wicket is good enough. But besides that, for me, I felt the fact that it was that close, it is the dream event. You want a sponsor or a neutral fan to come and watch. So for me, that was a classic. I think SEC were lucky to have gotten that particular point that you've just mentioned. I felt that Tornado B have quite a bit of the experience in there. Sebanj, I think, if I'm not mistaken, got quite a number of runs.
Got a half century, 73.
A half century, and an important one, but he wasn't as lucky with the ball. But for me, it showed that that the games, the closer the games can get, it simply goes ahead to widen and allow opportunities for clubs to quickly get points against each other.
Yeah, very, very true. And the thing I noticed out, the Tornado B, apart from Sebanya, they've largely kept most of the guys that they've been using in the past. So maybe after that game there will be a change of mind and try and bring in a couple of guys, the Kenyan guys who normally come and play for them. Maybe not, but I'm very, very certain that SEC managed to get a good result with they added we saw Narendra Singh playing for them this weekend. Oyaga Saddam as well played for them this weekend. So they added a lot more experience to their side. But they've also, largely kept it together, and they are coming up with some interesting results.
All sides seem to be leveled with or without national assets or big national assets. I think the contests are yet to get, they're only going to get better from this point.
That's true.
Yeah. Very, very true. The clubs that are yet to play in the top flight, Damani, we haven't seen them playing yet. Avengers, they haven't played, but all the other teams have been able to have a game so far, and it will be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to games like Wanderers, Tornado B, Avengers, Wanderers, Avengers, Tornado B. I feel that is where somehow still Damani, with the kind of team they have, looking at who was going to play for them this weekend, they might have lost Franco, Masaba and Achelam, but they've added Miyagi to their side, Kakuru, who are from the Under-19 World Cup. Dinesh Nakrani has moved from Kachi Tigers to their team. So they are still really a very formidable side. But I feel the midfield contest is going to be more exciting. We'll have more games like the one we had last weekend.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, it's turning out to be. It's going to be a very close one, especially in the middle. I think that's where, as you've rightly stated, the gist of the league, the activity will actually be happening there. For me, yet again, I must express my disappointment. I don't have the figure of Cup, but I'd be interested in knowing how many under-19 players, the guys that were in the World Cup, have actually played
a game
in the division.
Top flight.
Yes, I'm more interested in the top flight, because for me, you want to see elements of progress. You want guys come from the World Cup and actually get into the league, but not just get into the league, but actually dominate the top flight. So for me, I don't have the statistics as I mentioned, but
I don't think you need them. If I would tell you from what I know, it's just those two. The rest of the bulk of the team were from Nyakasura. They're still playing for Nyakasura, and then the others were also, many of them were in Aziz Damani development, and most of them are still there. So
considering Damani has yet played a game, are you trying to say that no under-19 players yet played a game?
Correct.
Well, I think we solved one problem and somehow let another one slide. Because with all the work that the games committee was able to do, I mean, a player like Kakuru leaving Wanderers for Damani was, in my opinion, again, something a move in. I would like to be as a jaded or hurt Wanderer, a move in the wrong direction, but I hope that he gets a bit of playing time. But looking at the structure he's getting into, really, if they dropped the national team captain for the under-19 player, what are the odds that he will get the playing time that he needs to actually keep his game growing? So I think, again, a watchful eye on a little bit of the baby cranes that we have. We have to be very, very protective of them to make sure that they're getting the playing time that they need and they're going in the direction that we want them to go. A month in, and these guys haven't played a game. It is all to the disservice of cricket.
More food for thought for Davis and his team, but we know that I don't know, they will come up with the answers at the end of the season. It's not a very long one, but going forward, I know the whole idea was to get in with one foot, see how it goes, and then maybe you can go in with both feet later on as we move forward.
Well, I hope we don't turn back after one season.
No,
there has got to be at least what's it called, a testing period of At least 2 to 3 years.
I think the only way is forward.
Yeah.
Well, we've been
And I think in the regulations
Guilty
actually
of
included it.
making
It said it
U-turns.
would last at least 4 years.
Mm.
I think
Yeah,
that
at
was
least
talked about, yes.
4 or 3 years. I
Yeah.
think that was
Because
the
this is not the
discussion.
first time it's actually been done. I remember in the early, 2011, 2012
Yeah,
or
it's
something. I
it's
think
been
there
done
was, a, there was,
before.
a, there was
Yeah.
a similar, but
Mm.
then, we had, we backpedaled.
We'll wait and see. But guys, we need to wrap this up. I'll thank you guys for coming through. Davis and Adonia, a pleasure as always.
Pleasure.
If it wasn't for the light, I think we could talk about this until we exhaust everything.
Yeah.
Well, we also need a sponsor.
Thank God you're here. So, I mean, why should we go so far when you're here?
Well-
We'll let you take care of that sponsoring bit because that is your forte. But thank you for coming through. Thank you guys for watching. Next week we'll have another exciting topic to talk about. And if you have any ideas how you want us to prepare for the show, if you want to be hosted, you can always get in touch with the Kawowo Sports team or myself so that we can be able to arrange that. But we welcome everyone who wants to be part of the show and share with us. Those that have left comments on YouTube and Facebook, thank you very much. And we've been able to read them out. So we'll be looking forward to more feedback about the show so that we can be able to bring you what interests you and what you want the guys to talk about and give an opinion about. So thank you very much for watching the Fine Leg Show. It happens every Friday, and we'll be with you next week with another very interesting topic.
Go and get some leg.